really was. It was all ordained and planned by God. And I'm just grateful that He allowed me to still be here and to be not so much of an example, but to be a voice. Because once you understand the power of your voice, you begin to utilize it in a way that will build people to have better lives for their children. And so I'm just grateful that God gave me the opportunity of life and to continue to be purposeful while I'm here.
This podcast is all about authentic conversations. It's all about growth, love, respect, success, mind, body, and spirit. If you're looking to grow and expand in your life and become your authentic self, this is the podcast for you. Hi guys, welcome back to Authentic Talks. I'm really excited about today's show because we have an amazing guest for you. Before we get started, I want to say thank you very much for all of your support, for the reviews, and for sharing the show with family and friends. I really appreciate it very much. Our guest this week is someone who I admire. I love what he stands for and what he represents. I love the work that he's doing within the community, and it's just amazing. And so I really wanted him to come on our platform and just share his story and why he does what he does. With that being said, without further ado, this week's guest is a former professional football player turned author, speaker, and now a marriage and family therapist. He was also the Be Modern Man of the Year for 2019, and he is also an actor. Please welcome you guys to the show today, Jay Barnett. Hi, Jay. Welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you doing? Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to have you here, and welcome to the show. All right, Jay, now first things first, we got to talk about this ministry that has now gone into retirement. The hat ministry.
Oh man. Man,
What?
that thing has taken a life of its own.
I was cracking up. So in my mind, Jay, I pictured like that you had like this ministry and that there were people sitting in a church and that men and women all had fancy hats on. And then as I continued to watch the video, I was like, oh, and so I was cracking up. I was like, oh, it's because his hairline was
Yeah. My
jacked
hair.
up.
Oh gosh. So I went to I've gotten my hair cut about 3 times from this guy, and this last time I was there, my buddy had texted me, says, "Hey man," he was like, "Where you at?" I said, "Yo, I'm at the barbershop." I said, Tony, I'll call the guy's name. I hope he hears this because I think he needs to know about the bad work he's doing. So I'm going to call his name out. I said, "Man, Tony's cut my hair." So my buddy texted me back. He was like, "Yo, dude, he messed me up last week." I was like, "What do you mean?" He was like, my buddy kind of gets like these blonde tips in his hair or whatnot. And so he said, yeah, he made the blonde tips purple. So I was like, all right, I was like, that ain't too bad. You know what I'm saying? So,
Is that
but
what he
then
wanted?
it's not what he wanted, right? But he wanted the tips. And I'm like, all right, it's purple. So, I'm like, that's, to me, that was minor. But then
Right.
he sent another message and said he pushed my hairline back. And I was like, oh, heck no, man. And by the time he says that, right, but something, and for the listeners, always go with your gut, man, dude. Hindsight is so perfect. Hindsight is 2020. Like literally, before I got in the chair, something said, "Don't let him touch your edge up, just to get him to do your beard." Because I was in town speaking and I was working, and I didn't want to go present the next day with my hair cut. I mean, with my hair looking the way that it was. I have this thing to where like I have to be, I have to present excellence no matter
Mm-hmm.
what scale or platform I'm on. And I was working with the company, with the business, and it's a small business, and I do their EAP training, and they wouldn't have noticed, but I noticed that I needed a haircut. So that alone just kind of really bothered me. So yeah, and lo and behold, by the time I got in there, and I was just like, well, let me give him benefit of the doubt because he was cutting my size good, and so I felt pretty good about the cut. And when he got on my edge up, I felt him take the razor, and I just felt him just kept like getting the edge. It just felt like he just kept
Uh-huh.
going back, and because it felt like he was getting closer and closer to my ear, and I was like, dude, do not, don't let me, don't hand me this mirror and you done push my edge up back. And sure enough, man, he handed me that mirror. I couldn't even say anything to him. I just got out the chair.
Oh, wow.
I just got out the chair, man.
And then that's how the hat ministry was birthed.
Yeah, that's how the hat ministry birthed because I told myself I was not going to wear this haircut. So I wore a hat for like 3 weeks straight. And I had events that I had to host. I wore a hat in the event. And I gave a disclaimer to the people. Said, "Hey, listen, man, you guys, I normally don't wear hats events, but I can't let people see my hair like this." So, and that's how the hat ministry was born.
And I seen a recent photo of you on Instagram, a video, and it looks like the hat ministry is now retired. Is that right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
okay,
yeah,
because I was,
yeah. The hat ministry is on a sabbatical now. Minister Barnett, he's going to step down from the hat ministry, and he's going to begin back working out in public with the rest of the rest of the members. So,
wow, that was,
man,
you
if people
know,
could know how angry and how upset I was, and my buddy created the hat ministry, he was like, "Yo, dude, you ought to do this hat ministry thing." And I was like, because everybody knew I was so mad, man. I was just so pissed, and really creating that hat ministry kept me kind of in a good space because like I'm just gonna be honest, like I literally wanted to get out the chair and put my hands on that guy. Like seriously. That's how bad it is.
like, I want to lay hands on you, but not in the way
Yeah.
that you think, you know,
Yeah,
like the
yeah.
other
No,
way.
it was not gonna be any blessings from these land of hands. If anything, it was gonna be some casting out.
So now you can add comedian,
Yeah,
you know, to because it was funny.
yeah. It's funny because it kind of took a life of its own. And my dad is a pastor, and he's a real charismatic and comedic guy. So I get it from him. And my dad, he creates characters, and so I get that earnestly from him, being able to kind of create these different personalities and personas. And so, and I'm always teasing him how the preachers are with their voices and stuff. And so, yeah, it was a great time, man.
Yeah, it definitely added some laughter and light in a lot of people's lives. Cause
Yeah.
so you grew up the son of a preacher. What was that like?
Yeah, my dad's a pastor. My dad's been pastoring 30 years in Mississippi, and my mom was Pentecostal. So I had a pretty interesting household because my dad's a Baptist pastor. And so, very interesting, or should I say, interesting dynamic. And yeah, so as I grew up going to church, doing revivals, and I mean, we were breaking the walls down.
I know about all that.
Yeah,
We
man.
used to even have like those. Did you guys do like the shut-ins where you're there all
Yeah,
night? Yeah,
we've
we
done
had
the
those too.
shut-ins. We did tarrying, where you come in and you tarry, so everyone get to get filled with the Spirit. So I because my mom was Pentecostal, and so we did that, and I was blessed. I will say say the least, that I was very blessed because I think there's something that we can gather from both structures of religion because that's what it is.
I
Because I feel
definitely
like,
agree.
and I feel like Baptists, they're very truthful and faithful to their tradition, which you do need tradition in some aspect. And then Pentecostal was very radical. They were very open to the new movement or the new wave of God. And I think they both can pull something from each other as well. And so I was able to take away understanding the power of the Holy Spirit, understanding the reason that I needed to be filled with the Holy Spirit as well, speaking in tongues, but also I walked away with being very firm on my belief, because that's what the Baptists give you. They're solid. They're not going to move just because everybody else is doing something different. And so I was able to pull from both of those perspectives, and it gave me a great solid foundation for myself as a child, and especially as I continue to grow, as I grew as a young man. And so it really helped me in those areas.
So you basically had a good foundation, and I think because you had that good foundation or that solid foundation, and you ended up going into the NFL, how did that happen?
So I was a free agent back in 2006. So I started out in the Arena Football League, and then I got my opportunity in the NFL. And then after that, faltered through. I went back to the Arena League. I'd been All American, and was just a great athlete, which my dad was. My cousins and my uncle had been former pro athletes as well. So that was, the background for being a Barnett as a man or as a male. But for me, after football came to an end, it was very challenging for me, because this is where my childhood issues began to resurface as an adult. Because during that time, I had used football for many years to cope with my anger, to cope with my depression, to cope with a lot of the issues, the resentment and bitterness that I held toward my father, because my parents divorced when I was about 13. And just seeing how things went down, and most definitely having the church being in the background of everything, but on the front end, the home life was not as we pretended it was at church. And that affected me a great deal. And for many young men who find different outlets and different things on how to cope with their issues, solid frustration, football was mine, because yeah, I can be violent, I can be physical, I can be aggressive, and the emotion that I can express, right? I can really express it outwardly, because sometimes challenges that we have as men is that we do know how to express, but many times how we express can be very unhealthy and can be very dangerous, not only to those around us, but even can be dangerous to ourselves, because we can develop a lot of self-destructive mannerism, character traits, and different behavior patterns. And so for me, that football was my thing. And when that coping mechanism was pulled away from me, I didn't feel that I had anything else to live for. And this is when, I attempted suicide the first time. And so, I just had a lot of those childhood experiences that I was trying to overcome. And for me, many times people who are dealing with suicidal thoughts, or struggling with depression, and really struggling with deep, 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 deep pain. It's not that we want to take our lives. Many times, people who are in those situations, they're trying to end the pain, and that's just to give some understanding to the people who often wonder, what people are going through. So they're not wanting to take their life; they're just wanting to end the pain. And I just wanted to end that pain, because football gave me that space. It gave me that opportunity to just really escape, right? Because for me, I was trying to prove to my father that I can be the man that he wasn't, without his. And so I owe much inwardly, and that's where my journey really began. And after being engaged, the first time I was engaged, it wasn't until the young lady that I was engaged to at the time, she said, Jay, I really think you should go to counseling. You really need some help. And man, and, I kind of took up on that, and a friend of mine helped me sort out a counselor, and that's when I began my therapy journey and going to counseling and those different things. And if you know anything about dealing with childhood trauma or experiences, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, it
And so,
is.
and I've been on this journey, and then I had a relapse After going in therapy is where I attempted my second suicide, which was a drug overdose, and from that point on, things really changed for me because I realized at that point, okay, God, there's a great calling and a purpose that you have on my life, because what I attempted and what I did and how I did it, not very many people wake up and survive from it. And I had gotten to the place where I was so numb to the pain that I was okay with dealing with whatever the repercussions were spiritually, so to
Mhm.
speak. And so I'm grateful to this day that man, that God has really taken this testimony and really revolutionized just the platforms that I've been on, and been able to share my testimony and been able to speak life into others.
You definitely have been able to become a blessing to many people. And they say it's through the darkness is when the light really shines. And so out of that, it's awesome how it birthed you into so many things. That you're an inspirational speaker, you are a therapist now, an actor, uh, a motivational speaker and inspirational. Is that like the same thing or not really?
Well, for to me, and this is my opinion.
Uh-huh.
To me, I'd rather be an inspirational speaker. I'd rather inspire people. I've never been able to get on with the title motivational, because I feel like motivation is very uh, um, it's I feel like it's, see if I can choose a word for it. It's very faint to me,
Mm-hmm.
because you can come in, you can speak people, and you can hype them up, but then again, when they leave there, how are they going to apply it? And so for
Mm-hmm.
me, I would rather than motivating somebody, because I feel that motivation is short lived, because most people are not motivated until they see results. And many times
Mm-hmm.
that's not how it happens, right?
Right.
But I believe that if you're inspired by my story, right, it's going to push you into new levels. And you know, I like the inspirational, because I want to inspire people to aspire to something bigger than themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And because there's times where I'm sharing my story from the pulpit, I'm sharing my story from the podium, I'm sharing my story from a chair sitting next to the kids. And so I truly feel that God has given me a very unique and very customized gift that is tailored just for me, to be able to connect to young people from all walks of life, wherever they may be, wherever they may reside, no matter their ethnicity, their gender, sexual orientation,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what it is. And so I truly thank God for that, because that was the vision that He gave me before I began to write my books, is that your messages and your the word that I'm going to put in your belly is not just for young black men or young black girls, or it's for all. Because sometimes we can become very closed off to the world that we live in, because of the world that we come from. And yeah, I'm a black man that comes from the world of living as a black man, but also the world that we live in has a multitude of people that have had similar
Mm-hmm.
experience, as well. And so, and that's what God revealed to me, and that's what I want to continue to do, is follow His path to just build people, man. Because I love people. I mentor
Mm-hmm.
Mexican kids, black kids, Asian kids, and Indian. So I've been blessed to really stand in the corner of so many kids that don't look like me, but we were able to connect because we had similar experiences, and that's what it's all about: is being able to look a young person in the eye, or just to look an individual in the eye, period, and say, "I get it. I know what that's like,
Mm-hmm.
but
And I
here is
love
how you can make it."
I love that. I absolutely love it because it's so true that it's not a race thing or about color lines or anything. And I love the fact that you moved that out the way because it's about a people thing. And you wrote a book. You wrote several books, and one of the books that you wrote was Finding Our Lost Kings and Queens. That book was about finding strategies for empowering the youth, the future kings and queens. What inspired you to write that book?
Um, I was inspired to write that book as I began my journey on discovering healing and going to therapy and counseling and sort of addressing some of the things that I had been dealing with. I had a conversation with a guy that was from Africa. He was a real king. He was the son of a king from Africa, and we had a conversation. And he said to me, he said, you know, I came to the U.S. and he said, one of the things that I noticed is that no one knows who they are. And we were talking about sports and athletes. And he says, if you're going to do something, right, do something that will impact people that are coming behind you. And he
Mm-hmm.
says, I don't know you who you are, but I see you as I see myself. He says, I am a king. And I mean, he was just bold with it, right? I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
am a king. You know, the problem with you Americans, and especially you black men, you don't know who you are. I mean, that's, you know, he's talking to
Yeah.
me in his accent, and I can just feel. And he says, ever since I was a little boy, my father told me that I was a king, that I can do and be whatever and whoever I wanted to be. And I was just like blown away
Wow.
because I had never heard such authority, right, spoken from a man
Mm-hmm.
about his father.
I love it.
I've never heard such authority spoken from a
Mm.
man,
Wow.
you know what I'm
That.
saying, about his
Mm-hmm.
father. And that within itself told me that his father made a impact on his life.
Mm-hmm.
And I began to really think and began to, because I'd already always been into writing, creating short stories, but I began to really dig deep on really developing content and developing a tool on how do we connect, because I felt at that time there was this bridge and that there was this gap that we were missing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we care about the elderly, we care about the babies, right? But I feel that so many times we forget about the teens. And the teens, the teenagers, their stage is the most important stage, because
Mm-hmm.
at that stage, they're learning how they respond, how they react, how they feel, how they think. And more importantly, they're learning how they process during those stages. And so I was inspired to create a tool, a book that will connect parents to their kids, mentors, teachers, leaders. But also, I was inspired to share my story on how not having that affected me, because my father was a great pastor, but he was not the best father. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I realized that I didn't have the same authority that this man had when he was speaking, as he was speaking about his father, because I had the complete opposite. If anything, I spoke with great pain about him because of the memories. And so
Mm-hmm.
with this book, it gave me an opportunity to begin to express what we should create for the future and how we should create and reconstruct the environment for the future kings and queens.
Wow, that's good stuff. Letters to a Young Queen, Redefining Their Throne. Is that book a spin off of the Finding Our Lost Kings and
Yeah,
Queens?
so both of the books that I wrote later after Finding My Lost Kings and Queens were books that I designated to the specific uh, groups or gender. I wanted to write a book for young ladies, and I wanted to write a book for young men. And before I ever wrote these books, I was already working in the environment of these young people. I had started a emotional recovery program for teen girls in Houston, Texas, titled the We Project, Women of Excellence, where I took about 30 girls through a 5 week personal growth and development program. And so I wrote that book based off what I saw from them. I wrote that book from a place of need. I wrote that book from a place of a deficit. You know what I mean? The things that they
Yes.
lack. And so I wrote that book not only just from a male perspective, but I wrote that book on the journey that I see many young girls will have to take in their life before they reach womanhood. It's the journey of self love. It's the journey of self worth, self awareness. It's the journey of self appreciation, self esteem, self confidence. And so it's a journey of self because many of these young girls will have to, they will have to find a journey that will allow them to recover more so than the self-discovery because they had already experienced so much negative and so many traumatic experiences by the time they reached me at the age of 12 or 13. And so for me, I know that young ladies, girls love letters. I think that's just a woman's thing, right? They love letters.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And
absolutely.
so I knew that if I can create this in the form of letters, it could speak to their heart and their soul. And the tone was not as if I was a dad. The tone was as if I was just a brother who was watching his sister go through her journey. He did not want to interfere or interrupt or become very overbearing, but he just wanted to whisper into her ear that I know where you are, but there's so much more to who you're becoming. And that's what my message was from that book.
Wow, I absolutely love it. I love what you're doing, and that a part of your purpose is to help our youth. And if I had had something like that growing up, it would have really helped me so much. And I love that you're able to reach both youth, boys and girls, as well as adults, which we'll get into a little later. Speaking at the Boys and Girls Clubs and at the schools and doing different things like that is just amazing. I absolutely love it. I watched one of your videos and it was really awesome because you were able to talk to the kids about that it's not only to the young ladies about the way that they dress, but you also spoke about it's the music that they listen to and the things that they watch. And what makes you unique, Jay, is the fact that you're able to speak to, like I said, boys and girls. And so that's that unique factor that you have going on, that and bringing them that message that the way that they're living now as young teens, it's like if they fast forward 10, 20 years, they're probably going to be doing the same thing. So and I love that you're allowing them to picture themselves like present day and to imagine themselves 10 years from now. And whenever you do something like that, that visual, I really think it helps a lot with the kids in understanding that, hey, wait a minute, I don't want to be twerking when I'm 30 or, having a certain reputation with the guys that I am a certain type of way. I feel like I know people now as adults who need to hear that message.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, where
Yeah.
where they don't know. It's like and that self love is huge. So I absolutely love it. I was like, this is so good. Helping people. And so
Yeah, man.
basically you're reframing the story is what you're saying and disrupting the pattern and just pushing forward and making things different. So that's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly what I do. And even from a therapeutic perspective, that's exactly what I do is reframe, disrupt the patterns, and reinsert new patterns of behavior to alter the structure that they may be existing or may be functioning in. And that's what it's all about. I mean, I think, when it's all said and done, I mean, we can look at Kobe's life and really take a lot from that. That at the end of the day, what will what would you have done that has made people better after you've gone? And that's what it's about for me. Who's better because of my life? This is like I'm like, man, it's great that we're able to live well, and many of us are first generation success stories, beyond our parents. But and that's great. But even when I'm sitting and talking to my people, my parents, it's like, it's a joy that they've gotten to see their son, make these type of changes, in the world, and to be instrumental to the lives of many young people. I've gotten great response and feedback over the years. I mean, just the testimonies, and when I go speak at school, all of the DMs that I get from the kids. Thank you. I wanted to take my life today, but hearing your story, like, that's what it is for me. Because when you're gone, your life will either speak of how you live, or your life will speak about how you didn't live. So, and that's important to me. It's like, how did I live when I was here? So, and I'm truly inspired by Kobe's death, because I look at the life of a man who lived a full life, right? Because a lot of times we try to associate or equate long life with impact, but that's not necessarily true, because I feel he is synonymous to Dr. King. They both lived 41 years, Kobe and Dr. King 39, but they've made an impact that will be talked about for generations to come. And I mean, you think about it, with Dr. King 60 years later, and we're still talking about him. And
That's
so
true.
those things excite me, because I'm like, man, it's about the legacy, man. It's like, it's about, and it's something that my father speaks of, to where now we have a great relationship. And he always says, man, I'm proud, dude, because like, you're doing some cool stuff with this ministry thing. And so, and he was like, you're doing it your own way, man. So that's been very, very, very humbling to receive, from him, because I know he set the course.
There are a lot of young people that look up to you, and there are a lot of adults that feel that you are a great mentor. Who is your mentor?
Well, I have a couple of mentors. Bishop Random Borders, he's my spiritual mentor, spiritual father. And Bishop Borders has been a great, great asset to my life, helping me understand just the challenges, spiritually, and even just the transition of just ministry, because what I do is ministry. It's not quote unquote ministry traditionally, but it's still ministry.
It
And
is.
so he pours into me, and I pour into him. But he's most definitely has been the father that I need at this point in my life. Because sometimes as parents, right, my dad, the role that he plays in my life is a role that has not really evolved, and I'm okay with that, because I had to adjust my expectations, right? Because my father's not somebody who's gonna call you, speak to you on the phone. It's just not him. But he will say little things, and so I've learned to grab that when he does share. But more importantly, what Bishop Border has been, and what Alfred Edmond, which is like my life mentor, and just business, and just overall, just so you could never have too many mentors, you know what I mean? And so,
Right.
and those guys that I'm able to pour, they're great husbands, they're great leaders, they're great fathers, they're great men. And for me, I wanted leaders and mentors that would marry mentors that could give me not only their perspective, but also men that could give me God at the same time. Well, let's look at the word. I mean, it's great to have people to provide their man wisdom, but then there's another level when they're able to give you what thus saith the Lord. So
How does
that's
your
just
father feel when he hears you saying that? Or is he the
um
type that would never express it to you?
you know what, my dad, man, he's a type that he probably would never express it to me. It's really weird, because I'm the only boy, and my father has very close relationship with my sister. So I have to get my father's validations, or should I say praises or compliments, through my sister. Like, he doesn't say it to me. Like he'll text my sister. My sister's like, man, I'm so proud of that dude. Like he's doing some dope. Just I mean, he'll just like I cried, and my sister screenshot it and she'll send it to me, and that's how I get it.
Oh,
So again, what I would love for him to be more, because I'll call him, but my father's not going to stay on the phone no longer than 5 minutes. He's never been a guy who's going to be emotional with you, stuff like that. But I've
mm-hmm.
learned to accept him for who he is rather than who I want him to be. I would love for him
Yeah.
to be what I get out of my mentors, but I do believe God will ordain certain people to be what you need at that stage in life.
I think it's awesome that people are placed in our lives to fulfill certain roles that we need at that time in our life. I recall one day sitting in class and the instructor asked a question about this 80-20 method, and she drew like a mountain on the board, and then she put 20% at the top and then put 80% at the bottom. And basically what it was, the 80% was the things that we were ashamed of or that we didn't feel comfortable enough to share with people that were around us and open up yet about those things, because basically you didn't feel safe or that it was a trusted space. And so as people were calling out things that they were writing on the board, I was sitting there, and what started to boil up for me was remembering a time when I would watch people with their really close relationships with their parents, particularly their mother, like mother daughter. And I often thought, like, wow, I actually don't have that at the level that I would like to have it with my own mother. And it was something that I never really talked about often. I mostly would share just a good side or the good memories. And as I was sitting there, I started to realize why I had not really opened up too much and shared the details of that relationship. Do you know what it was for me?
What was that?
It was, they said that when you have a relationship that's not good, that it's a reflection of you. And so I spent probably about 20 years when in the company of certain people thinking that if I open up and share that, like, I don't have the traditional mother daughter relationship, although I love my mother very much, that people would look at me and think that it was a reflection of me not being the one who was, bringing certain things to the table. And I didn't want to be viewed in that way, because people who had been around and had had a chance to witness certain things between the kids and my mother were able to see that there was something that just wasn't right with it. And it's not like I'm trying to make this like a bash parent show or anything, but I'm just sharing and being honest. It's called authentic talk. So I'm just keeping it real that like that was my thing. And so I feel so much better now. I can talk about it openly and not feel, after going through a lot of self assessment of myself and reevaluating things in my life, I don't feel like, okay, all of that is me. It's like, not me, not mine. It's yours. Do you know what I'm saying or what I mean? Have
Yeah,
you?
yeah, yeah,
So what about you? It was, what about myself that I don't like that I actually see in her? And so having to deal with that was something that I wasn't quite ready for at the particular time when I was going through it. But I had that epiphany of what exactly it was that night when I was actually in class.
yeah,
I realized that it's not always things that we can fix, and that sometimes it's the way that they were raised.
yeah. Well, because see, no one can give you what they don't have.
Right.
And I think a lot of times we become frustrated because we have an expectation for people to function in a capacity in which they're unable to do. And so
Mm-hmm.
in that case is we have to then make a decision. And even in therapy, you have to make a decision on, do I keep my expectations here and expecting them to meet them one day?
When you're just going to keep being disappointed.
Exactly. Or do I adjust my expectations and accept them for what they're only able to give me at this point in time?
That makes a lot of sense. Now, I know that you do things for adults as well. Can you share?
Yes, I do things for adults as well. One of the things that I'm doing now is EAP, which is employment assistance program where companies will bring me in to provide mental health counseling, coaching therapy. They kind of talk a lot to do emotional intelligence programming. So that's kind of the thing that I'm doing now as well, in conjunction to everything else.
Do you think that having emotional intelligence is better than having a high IQ?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think the higher you are in your within your emotional intelligence, it really determines how your altitude in life. I really believe that. I think it determines how high you go. Sometimes we don't realize how much control we have over our emotions. But that's hard when your emotions have been the driver in all of your decisions. Being emotional intelligent, what it does, it gives you the opportunity to control everything that you have within your control, which is your response versus reaction,
I
which is
think
how you feel and then how you process.
I think every company should have something like that,
Yeah,
where
absolutely.
they have some kind of training on emotional intelligence and stuff. Now, you have something called Be Modern Man. Can you share what that is all about?
Yeah, so I was one of the original ambassadors for Black Enterprise Initiative for the BE Modern Man, which is men of color exemplifying excellence in their character, in their work, in their pursuits. And so last year, I was awarded 2019 Man of the Year from the work that I've been doing through the mental health platform. And so it's a great initiative that Black Enterprise began several years ago. And I was blessed and honored, along with some other amazing guys, to be a part of their rollout for it. And so it's just been a great honor to have the support of Black Enterprise, the support of Be Modern Man, and to really just have the opportunity to allow other men of color to see that, there are some men out there, and then just allow the world to see that there are some men of color, some Black men, some brown men that doing some amazing things. And so I was just honored, and I was totally surprised when they called my name to be a recipient of the award, because many times I don't think about awards, I don't think about accomplishment. I just enjoy the work, man. And so, but very humble and very blessed to have received that award.
I love it. That's good stuff. I love that you're mentoring. I think I mentioned this earlier. Young people, which is girls and young boys, and also men, just people overall. And what is the youngest group of kids that you're mentoring or speaking to?
I have worked with various ages, as young as 9 and up, and so a lot of my therapy clients are young kids. But I mean, I've spoken in front of just about every age group, so fifth grade, sixth grade, all the way up through college. So, and that's the thing, I really can really speak to any group of kids, and I can customize a message, customize a talk, and tailor it to fit them. Whether I'm at an all white school, all Black school, a diverse school, or a continuing education school, no matter what it is God has anointed me to be able to deliver a message to everyone. So
You mentioned you're able to speak to kids of various backgrounds or walks of life. What would be the difference in the message that you would deliver or what you would communicate to children that were in a predominantly white school, per se, compared to children that were in a mixed cultural environment?
what it would look like is understanding the culture. And many times, understanding the culture is understanding what are the presenting issues that constantly come up with those kids. And typically, in those cases, kids deal with a lot of abandonment issues. And from the outside, we look at it and say, well, they have everything. They come from a very affluent background or a community, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they are getting the love and the attention that they desire from their parents as well. Because there are times where these kids, they have access, right? But they don't have a connection to the parents. They have, you know, uh, available resources, but they don't have emotional support. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
so many different things. So when you understand that, then I can customize a message on, okay, how did you speak to those kids for where they are? Because their issues are synonymous to the kids and that's growing up in a black neighborhood, right? They're all experiencing abandonment issues, right? Mama's doing the best she can, grandmama's doing the best she can. The dad is not around. You don't have emotional support from the dad. You don't have a good model. Like the home is dysfunctional, the home is broken. So either way, they're both being abandonment, whether it's intentional or unintentionally. They're both experience abandonment issues, and they're both are struggling to discover who they are. On one end, I don't have money and I don't know who I am. On the other end, I come from money and I still don't know who I am. So that's why
Mm-hmm.
understanding that's why the identity crisis, it's a very broad. I think it reached a multitude of individuals, no matter their walk of life.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I agree with that. It goes back to people are people. And you are now a therapist. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, now therapist. Yeah, and
What type of therapy are you?
so I'm a marriage and family therapist. So I work with a lot of, I do a lot of interventions for families. I work with a lot of kids who deal with depression, anxiety, and suicide ideation. So I work in the realm of that. Even work with some kids who are on the spectrum and autism. And so I have a pretty extensive background in those areas. And so I'm grateful to be able to serve not only individuals but the community as well. And then I also will be launching a virtual mental health counseling and coaching platform in the next week because there's a lot of people who connect with me across the globe, and so I'm able to do mental health coaching for them in various states and areas, and it's virtually. Like they don't have to show up in the office;
Yeah,
they
that's
can do it from their
nice.
home. So just to provide some more opportunities for people to get some support.
Now, you said that it's going to be a link or a website that people can go to.
It's a website where you can go on there. You can cancel your, you can, I mean, you can schedule your session. You get your link to where you go, and simple as that. One, two, three. I am able to give the website. It is kgbcoaching.com. kgbcoaching.com.
It's like it was supposed to happen that way for this very reason, for all of the reasons, the things that you shared today. And I'm sure that there's people listening, somebody out there, or somebodies that you have helped with sharing your story.
Yeah, it really was. It was all ordained and planned by God, and I'm just grateful that He allowed me to still be here and to be not so much of an example, but to be a voice. Because once you understand the power of your voice, you begin to utilize it in a way that will build people to have better lives for their children, children, children. And so I'm just grateful that God gave me the opportunity of life and to continue to be purposeful while I'm here.
It actually leads me into my next question that I have for you. Do you still do speaking engagements?
Yeah, I still do speaking. I start back up in March. And so I usually take a few months off, but I start back up in March. And for the listeners, they can follow me, King Jay Barnett, on social media, on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all of those different platforms. I'll be posting the flyers or badges, and they have so many terms for it. But yeah, they can follow me there on where I'm going to be. But my next engagement is at a men's conference in Houston, Texas, March 7th. And so I'm excited about that. I'm excited to get back into speaking. And so I've been off for a few months now. But yes,
Mm-hmm.
I'm still speaking.
A part of taking that time off is all about self care.
Yeah, self care is having the wisdom to give yourself what you need when you need it. So, so
Mm-mm, definitely.
yeah.
Do you talk about self love or self care with the adults that you speak in front of or with?
Oh yeah, yeah. You have to. I think you would be doing a disservice to not. for many adults, they don't know what self-love looks like, right? Because if
Mm-hmm.
you've been raised on survival, you don't know what that is, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of time, it's a lot to uncover and to unpack, because I'm speaking for 45 minutes, and so it's a lot to take somebody through and walk them through. That's why counseling, therapy, coaching, support groups are all beneficial to really help walk people through that process. Because again, you can hear a message on self-love, but to really gain an understanding of what self-love is a process. And so
Mm-hmm.
most definitely that's something that I cover, but always I'm encouraging people to pursue what that looks like and to find groups or persons or an individual that can help coach you through what that looks like. If you're not familiar with it, it's hard for you to grasp the concept of it. So,
Mm-hmm. I know several people that had procedures done, and they were doing this to raise their self esteem or to feel better about themselves and the way that other people viewed them. And one of them woke up after healing and felt the exact same way. And if anyone thinks that they're going to be able to go and get the big butt and have their waist snatched up, and that that's going to solve some of the mental things or the low self-esteems or the other things that are going on, they're going to be in for a big rude awakening.
because self love has nothing to do with enhancing
That's
your
right.
outside, it has everything on healing your inside.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that self love and self care and all of these things are coming up over and over again, and that people are hearing about it. And the more they hear about it, it will start to resonate with them and understand like what self love truly means. I wanted to ask you, if someone listening to the show today wanted to get your books, where can they find them?
All of my books are on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, Kindle, and the Hello King book for young men is on iTunes. And if there's someone who's interested in the coaching, kjbcoaching.com is a website, and we haven't launched it to the public yet, but it is up, and they can go schedule an appointment and follow through the link and everything. And so, but yeah, and that's how they can contact me and reach me.
Mm-hmm.
And on my social media platforms on Instagram, it has my website and all other landing pages where you can contact for speaking and for any other opportunities that may be available.
And you do travel out of Texas and go other places to speak at schools as well? Or is
Oh
it
yeah,
only.
yes,
Okay.
yes. Oh yeah, I'm all over the country.
Can you share your favorite quote with us today and by who?
Favorite quote is by the great Miles Monroe. Life is not about what you get, but it's about who are you becoming.
I absolutely love it. Wow, you guys, that was an amazing show. I really enjoyed talking with Jay. I love that he was really open and shared how he had fallen down and got back up from being just everything that he shared, from his relationship with his father to being in the NFL to being a therapist to being a coach and an author as well as a public speaker. Just everything was just really good, and I just really enjoyed talking with him, and I'm hoping that you guys were able to get a lot of those gems that he was dropping and that you was able to pick them up so that you can have those in your back pocket, because it was some good stuff. And I wanted to share with you the name of Jay's 3 books in case you missed that throughout the show. Hello King, Claim Your Throne. The next book is called Letters to a Young Queen. And then he has Finding Our Lost Kings and Queens. Now, here's the thing. You can find the books on Amazon, or you can find them at Barnes and Noble. And then he did mention that there's a Kindle book that you would be able to download. Go back and listen to the show again if you missed anything. This is the type of show that you listen to it once and you go back again and listen to it a second time and you catch something that you didn't catch the first time. It's just a really great show. I enjoyed it very much, and I love that he found his purpose and that he's walking in it and owning it and doing what he came here to do. That's the beauty about these situations where people fall down and they get back up. I love, love, love it. It's amazing. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'm Shanta with Authentic Talks.
Life is not about what you get. It is about who you are becoming.